Gil Hoffman, a big welcome to you this evening. Nice to have you on board.
Pleasure being with you, Howard and Michael.
Hey Gil, how's it going? How's it going, Howard?
Good,
Uh,
Mike. I feel like I've seen you all day today.
Yeah, we put in hard work here.
Uh, exactly. So, Gil, tell us, where do you join us this evening?
Jerusalem,
Okay, and how has the day been with
awful.
awful? Tell us about your day.
Um, well, we've had about seven sirens today, or at least warnings. One of them came during our morning prayer service, which is annoying because the bomb shelter is for the community, but also the synagogue kind of took it over, but they haven't really been at the same time, and kind of we had a clash this morning, which was a little awkward. Um,
So, what happens if you're in the middle of davening and the siren goes off? Do you continue in the shelter, or does everyone leave, go down, and then come back to continue?
we stopped in the middle of the repetition of the Shmoneh Esrei, um, stood up, took our chairs, and put them in the other rooms so that when the people would come down, they would have a place to sit and would have less to complain about.
Are people complaining a lot? Jews. Do you
Like, and,
think the
and
mood's changed? Do you think there's less support for the war? I know in the first week, people were very for the war, but do you think the
yeah.
mood on the ground's changed?
People are annoyed that it's not over, as people in the north, especially my aunt, who's super gung-ho pro Netanyahu, she says just let it end already, and particularly by the Seder. I mean, I'm doing my Seder at a retirement center and be leading 50 people there. And we particularly up and then come back and continue, and they're old. And uh, yeah, so there's no doubt that even though we understand the importance of the war and everything, people were hoping it would be shorter.
Gil, Michael and I were busy talking about there's almost this belief, if you read social media, that the war hasn't been successfully executed. But militarily, it's been an enormously successful now almost 4 weeks, tomorrow for 4 weeks. Where does where does one get information? Where do you rely on
Mm.
for reliable information about what's happening?
Okay, so I'll address both of those things. Number one, it's undeniable that killing the Ayatollah and 40 of his people in the first moments of the war is an accomplishment that makes the entire region safer. The all the military targets that have been hit are important for the future to prevent the regime from being able to target Israel in a serious way in the future, and laying the groundwork for the people of Iran to feel much more free to bring about that regime change that has to come from them. Um, so yes, it is an undeniable military success, but the goals of the war included um, permanently stopping the nuclear program, which there's a technicality with enriched uranium that's underground that they haven't gotten to and might need ground forces for. Um, and people are impatient with the regime change, and I understand. Hi, Tal. I'm just going to
Hi,
answer him,
Tal.
and then we'll.
Tal, come join us. Turn on your camera.
Hi, I just didn't want to interrupt Gil.
Yes, he asked a long question there. Sorry about that. Um, the second part of how we get our news. Look, the army is constantly putting out information about what they're doing. They might not be doing it in English press conferences the way they did at the beginning after October 7th, the way they should be doing. But they're putting it out, and those of us who have the advantage of following Israeli media from knowing Hebrew, or at least can follow the Jerusalem Post and Times of Israel and I-24, you're fine. If you're getting your news from media outlets from anywhere else around the world, and they don't have the pro-Israel agenda that I think people might feel more comfortable with.
So, Tal, we were busy just describing what our days were like. My sense is that Michael and I had a much easier day than the two of you. Where did you spend the day, and tell us what it was like?
1 second.
Howard, well, tell us about your day, because you had an interesting day too.
I just came. I'm never in a collared shirt for any of these. I'm always in a t-shirt, and I just came from the American consulate. We have a new American ambassador to South Africa.
What's his name?
And, he's called Bozel. He's Leo Bozel III, Brent Leo Bozel III. In fact, I had drinks with him at his home on Friday evening, and tonight the consulate in Johannesburg threw a cocktail party with him. So that's why I'm, as they would say, or my parents would say, a little uitgeputst. But I managed to get my suit jacket and fancy shoes off in time. The food was lovely. I know, Michael, you're going to ask. It's a very important question for Michael. The food was lovely. There were little salmon and canapes, and I left early. I left before the ambassador even spoke in order so we could start this webinar. But he is an interesting character. He is very much in the Trump camp. He said something very interesting to me on Friday evening when I was at his home for cocktails, and he said, I've come here with an America First agenda. That's my government's policy. We want to put America first, and you should have a South Africa First agenda. That should be your obligation to put the interests of your country first as well. And I thought that was quite insightful. It wasn't like we're here to dictate to you, just understand what our interests are, and we'd love to understand what your interests are, and we hope you act in your best interests as well. So Tal, before we were rudely interrupted by who's ever checking that you've had dinner, tell us about your day.
It was like any other day at the end of the day. For the most part, what we see on social media isn't real life. Of course, there are strenuous moments. I don't have a bomb shelter where I live in my own home, a safe room, so I have to run to a community bomb shelter every single time. So that can be very nerve-wracking and more just emotionally draining. You just kind of like to constantly have to do it. But you go down to the shelter, you wait for the all clear. You're supposed to wait for the all clear, and then I just go about my day and just continue doing my work. So I don't let it affect my day-to-day too much beyond what it has to.
How many times did you land up in the shelter today?
Today, I think around 6 times today.
Crazy.
Today was a little bit more.
It's traumatic, and do you read into that the Iranians are trying to throw everything they can at this just in case there's a ceasefire? It looks like they've done well.
No, I personally, it seems that there's a little bit of an uptick in the amount of alarms and alerts coming out in the past few days, but it's been pretty consistent over the past almost 4 weeks in terms of the amount of alerts and strikes that we've had. It's very, very different from what happened in June, and I think that you can't really compare between the two wars. In June, the majority of the missiles that were being launched were ballistic missiles. They were also launched in large waves, and each one of those missiles can do an incredible amount of damage to the immediate vicinity of wherever they hit. But when it comes to the current war, it's primarily fragmentation munitions, so that they essentially disperse in the air. I actually have a video. I was stuck on a highway yesterday, and I remember I look up and it was incredible to like see it opening up and coming like straight towards me, and it went over my head.
That's what we commonly refer to as cluster weapons.
Yeah, essentially a cluster weapon. And when they strike, they have a very, very distinct sound that you can hear. It's boom, like that. You just hear these like very, very, it's like shock, this kind of like machine gun fire of impacts, but they're not as, for example, in the previous war, there were 2, I won't say exactly where, but there were 2 strikes near where I lived, and everything shook. Like the entire building where I lived shook. But this time, these types of munitions don't do a lot of damage, but they do a large area of damage in terms of like, instead of it just hitting one central location, they disperse. It's kind of, I would say it's similar to a bunch of Qassam rockets from Gaza being fired at once and then hitting a large area.
So Tal, let's start with you. How did you get into this line of work? And for everyone who's joining us this evening, we are going live in about 6 minutes or so. But before we do that, we always chat to our guests and we get to learn a little about them. So Tal, you have a fascinating line of work. How did this all begin?
Yeah, so whoever doesn't know who I am, I'll introduce myself briefly, and I'll probably also do it again when we go live, so bear with me. My name is HAGIN. I'm an independent information warfare analyst and media literacy lecturer. And to explain what essentially that means in a nutshell is I verify online media and ensure things are valid in terms of the verification process that they go through. I actually started out in this line of work when I was 15 years old. I'm currently 27. I started out after the war in Gaza in 2014, Operation Protective Edge. And, I see all these commentaries and things going on around me, everyone saying what they think of the war, what's happening in Gaza, what isn't happening. And I was curious to understand essentially what was going on. So I actually found myself more in what you would call Israeli advocacy, Hasbara. And I was with these types of organizations for about 3 years. But I felt at a certain point that I was just pushing a message that I didn't really understand myself. And I thought that I was simplifying a narrative of a much more complex overall discussion. And so I started to more focus on how do we even come to the opinions that we have? What are we basing them on? What is the foundation of our beliefs? And that's when I started more focusing on fact checking, verification. And over the years, I've slowly kind of found myself in this niche of where I am today. And my day-to-day is both providing verification online just to the public. For example, if you follow my work and you know what I do, everything you see me doing online.
Oh boy, do I follow your work.
If you see the thousands of verifications I do, I'm not paid for that. I do this simply because I love it and am passionate about this type of work. This isn't where I make my money from. I do it because I love it. I'm a consultant for AI companies and media organizations and governments and politicians when it comes to media verification. I'm apolitical in nature. I don't go into the topics of politics. It's not where I focus. My job is to ensure accurate reporting. What happens after they have the facts is completely up to the individual themselves. I don't tell them what to do with that information. And that's kind of where I work today. And the big part of what I do is education. So I have seminars, courses, and lectures that I provide on a wide variety of topics that can be all the way from how to safeguard your kids online from abusive content so that they know how to safeguard themselves, all the way to helping individuals understand the information warfare in regard, for example, to how Hamas used Telegram and other social media sites on October 7th to fight against the state of Israel. And so very much a very wide range of different topics and discussions that I focus on.
Amazing. And Gil, yourself, what were you doing before Honest Reporting?
I covered politics for the Jerusalem Post for a quarter century. I followed around presidents and prime ministers and reported from behind the scenes in the Israeli corridors of power and wrote 2-3 stories a day for the Jerusalem Post and their top analyses and on the side spoke in 12 countries around the world and all 50 United States. So that's what I did.
Gil, we always say that only fools and prophets predict the future, but you have an election coming up in Israel a little later this year. If you were Polymarket, where would you be putting your money?
Yeah, I can't be on record.
I'm not asking you who you would like to win. I'm asking you who you think will win.
All I'll say is that it's going to be very hard for Netanyahu, no matter what successes there were in this war, to recover from October 7th. People are very angry, and when you lose your political base, people of Sderot and Ofakim who were killed that day, and everybody knows someone, there's a lot of reasons to be angry. It makes it very hard. No matter what polls say, and right now he's doing rather well in the polls. It's the hardest election he's ever had.
And tell how many pieces of information do you analyze a day? Because when I go onto your X feed and there's just this picture is from actually 1994 and this one's from Mongolia, and this is a very time-consuming thing that you do.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think a better question is, when am I not looking at this information, this content? Very much takes up the majority of my day. I do it when I'm on the bus, when I am having a lunch break. I do it in between like breaks when I'm not working. It's very much full time. I do it all the time. And one of the benefits, though, when it comes to the reason I'm able to verify content very, very fast is due to the fact that I'm able to memorize every single photo and video that I've seen in the past like 2.5 years. And so as I'm simply scrolling, I notice a video or a photo that I've seen before, and then it's very easy for me to quickly analyze the claim and debunk it because I know that it's fake, and then it's just about proving it's fake for the audience.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, the time has gone 8 p.m. in Tel Aviv, 8 p.m. Jerusalem, and 8 p.m. in Johannesburg. And it is remarkable that we're joined this evening not only by the thousands of people who are watching us on Zoom, on YouTube, and on Facebook this evening, but we're joined by a remarkable and illustrious panel. JRLive doesn't know, but we've been chasing him for months in order to secure him on a panel this evening. JRLive, thank you so much. Whenever I turn on a television or whenever I turn on social media, you are there. And I'm so delighted that we have you live and in person this evening.
Hello, glad to join you.
You know, you will also remember when you were unceremoniously dismissed from your position that you may or didn't have. We invited you to South Africa on holiday because we thought you needed a break. And that invitation still stands. So I hope in the not too distant future, you come join us in one of our game parks.
If you can get a letter from the South African government saying I'll be safe, I'll come.
You know, we don't have the most competent government. They won't know you're actually here.
Okay, deal.
So with that, to everyone who's watching us this evening, this is the 193rd webinar brought to you by the South African Jewish Report, and a big welcome to all of you as well. We're going to kick off in 1 minute, but we wanted to remind you that the Pesach edition of the Jewish Report is available free of charge, and you can go get the edition. It's a 40-page edition. You can go see the headline. One of the CAP security cars, I don't know if you saw, ran over a member of our community this week, and she has miraculously survived with an ankle injury. How she survived is truly miraculous. Read all about it in this week's edition of the Jewish Report, and don't forget, you can collect a copy of it at Kosher World or your local restaurant, your bakery, your bookshop, your spa, your Checkers, your Discam. We're in about 240 locations around the country, free of charge. Go and collect your edition. There will also be in all of the shuls over the Pesach period going forward. This is an edition you don't want to miss. Also, please remember that we do not only a hard copy edition, but we also do 3 weekly newsletters. We distribute to approximately 38,000 people every week on 3 times a week on our newsletter. If you haven't subscribed, the link to subscribe, the bit.ly link, SAJR inbox, is on your screen now. Please subscribe. And over the Pesach period, while we won't be producing a hard copy newspaper, we will still be talking to you digitally. So if you want to remain informed, please go do that now. If you're watching us on YouTube, we ask one favor. Go and click that like and subscribe button. That allows us to communicate with you much better. It's not much for us to ask. So please go, if you're watching on YouTube, and click those buttons now. Also, every single day, people stop me wherever I go and say, I missed a webinar. Where do I find it? All of our webinars are available online at the Jewish Report website, sajr.co.za. That's also where you can go and read either the entire copy of the Jewish Report in a downloadable format, or alternatively each individual article. But there's a webinar button. Go and click it, and all our past, the previous 192 webinars are all there. We've been watched about 7 million times by people around the globe. And so if you missed anything, please go there or go onto our YouTube channel as well. This is going to be our last webinar that, in fact, we do before Pesach. So we wanted to, on behalf of the Jewish Report, wish all of our viewers, whether you're celebrating Easter or Pesach or just celebrated Eid, just Chag Sameach to you all. May it be a Pesach full of freedom, and may our brothers and sisters in Israel not have to spend it running in and out of bomb shelters. So with that, JRLive, you're up first because you've got some time constraints. You're all over our television screens. You are almost the face of Israel advocacy. Tell us what it's like to have been on the front line of the current war.
Look, they say that Israel has a PR problem. It's not true. PR is if you have an island destination you want to pitch. Israel has a problem that it is under a colossal amount of disinformation warfare being pumped out by nefarious actors, states amplifying it. Unfortunately, large numbers of UN officials, human rights organizations as well, that are simply lined up against Israel. I think the case for this war is easier than it's been at any point in the last 2.5 years. And that's because Israel's not fighting it alone. This is a US-Israeli coalition taking on the Iranian regime together. And the United States has been very forceful in making that case. But there are many people who are trying to take that hot war and freeze it, to try to kick the problem into the long grass again, to make the problem go away. And so it is an ongoing battle to explain why quitting while we are ahead would be the most dangerous thing to do, why this is a problem that you can't simply ignore and wish away as so many world leaders want. And the really difficult thing, why it's worth the world paying what is a very steep price now, because the Iranian regime has effectively declared war on the entire global economy in order to prevent the very real threat of a nuclear-armed Iran with a massive ballistic missile arsenal, and why that had to be eliminated, and why the US and Israel have to keep going.
But tell us what your day looks like.
My day is filled with trying to do as many media interviews as I can. I was on News Nation the other night. I just hopped off an interview with Mario Naufal on Twitter. The traditional media is not the only place where it is at. If you've got a podcaster in Dubai who has 3 million followers on Twitter, then you go and you give an interview there, because that's how the message gets out. So I'm trying to give as many interviews as I can all over the world. I run an initiative called the Spokes Office, Israel's citizen voice to the world. Our job is to take the most eloquent voices the Jewish people have from civil society and push them for interviews on TV. Make sure every Indian producer who wants to get an eloquent Zionist voice, we have someone who is making the case over there. And of course, social media. Many people consume their information not from sitting on TV in front of CNN, but what they're seeing on Twitter. So it's keeping on top of the news. It's constantly tweeting. It's thinking about the messages and how we want to calibrate them. It's thinking of creative ways to create content to get the message across, perhaps in a humoristic way, and really just trying to wake up every day and make as much noise as possible, but make exactly the right sounds to try to hold on to the support that we have and hopefully expand it.
Do you find the press more sympathetic or less sympathetic this time around?
I think it's not a question of sympathy towards Israel this time round, because there's a much bigger story, which is the United States taking the lead in a coalition strike against the Iranian regime. And that means that really anything about Israel is within the broader context of a US-led campaign. There's definitely more understanding from the international community about the threat of the Iranian regime. I mean, just look at the way the Gulf states are behaving now. The UAE tried to avoid this war. It was lobbying the US not to launch this war. Now they're begging it to finish the job. You have the UAE ambassador in the United States writing in the Wall Street Journal, and I recommend anyone who hasn't read this op-ed, go and read it, saying we don't want a simple ceasefire. You can't just wish the problem away. We want a comprehensive arrangement that deals with the full scope of Iranian threats, namely ballistic missiles, nukes, threats to maritime shipping, proxy armies, drones, as close as they can to telling the United States, keep going. You're fighting against a regime that is much more widely seen as evil, whereas the Palestinians still have significant international support. Much less of a focus on civilian casualties. It's there, the Minab school strike incident gained headlines, but you're not seeing the same daily images of suffering as in Gaza, also because of the way that the regime is fighting. It's not fighting from that network of tunnels underneath people's feet in quite the same way. We're seeing less sympathy when it comes to Lebanon, but when it comes to the Iranian regime, I think broadly international understanding about the importance of the goals of the war, they just don't like the idea of war to achieve it. And therefore part of the challenge in explaining the case is why allowing diplomacy and allowing the Iranians to continue drying you out while they're building ballistic missiles more cheaply and more quickly than the West is able to build interceptors, why military action was really the only possible response. And that was a month ago. Right now, why it's important to keep going rather than trying to sue for peace in the middle when the US-Israeli coalition is ahead and the Iranian regime is increasingly desperate.
You took on Maria Norful earlier today on Twitter, and I presume that's why you landed up speaking to him and being interviewed by him earlier. Talk to us about influencers and the new media influencers, whether it's him or Visegrad. Tell us who the most influential people are and how should one deal with them? And when you disagree with them, what should you, as almost a viewer participant on X, what should your reaction be?
The evolution of social media has democratized the public space in a way that, you know, if you're walking in the public square, you're not going to get close enough to someone important to shout in their ear. But if you're on Twitter, you can just reply to literally anyone in the world and you have no idea who's going to see you. Maybe Elon Musk himself will see you. So I definitely would advise people to use their voices and be on social media and reply and call things out, because you never know who's watching and who's reading and where it could influence them. There are some advantages to having media being devolved from the traditional media. Many disadvantages, because influencers, whatever, don't see themselves being held to the same editorial standards that at least traditional media in theory see themselves being held to. What concerns me more is the accounts that are anonymous or sock puppets, which means accounts that represent fake identities that are pumping out non-stop disinformation. And I'm sure you're going to talk about this with some of the other people on the panel who I follow as well and have been doing amazing work on this. But there is just a vast disinformation industry that is monetized. When you see an account that has a blue check mark on Twitter, it means you're eligible to get a share of the ad revenue. And Elon Musk sends you a check every 2 weeks. It means that Twitter is literally paying people to spread viral disinformation that involves conspiracy theories about Jews. That's the business model. And they have no interest in clamping down on it. And every day it's a different story, whether it's videos that go up that have fake translations in the captions, fake translations in the software, in the video itself, videos that have fake audio implanted into it. That's even before you get onto the AI. And that's before you get onto the fakes that actually have absolutely nothing to do with AI or manipulation. I saw a story yesterday, okay? That Israel is demanding that Greece surrender 40 islands because Israel wants to expand into Greece. Did you know that? Total fake news. Turns out there was a story 4 years ago that a representative from the Blue and White Party on some subsidiary company of JNF proposed that Israel buy or lease some Greek islands to evacuate populations during times of war. The idea was immediately shot down. Everyone said it was stupid, and the idea never came up again. Suddenly on Twitter yesterday, I'm seeing 3 million views on a tweet that the defense minister of Israel is trying to purchase islands in Greece, and of course that feeds into the conspiracies about Jews being land-grabbing colonialists who are trying to take other people's land. And that's where there's no accountability at all, because there is no human face, and you don't even know who's behind it. And that's how social media, with all the viral fake news, you know, the whole Netanyahu is dead, Tel Aviv is destroyed things being amplified by foreign actor accounts around the world, but you get really viral disinformation where it's impossible to hold anyone to account.
How do you read Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens? What do you think they're doing? Is it this pure commercial enterprise for them?
I think Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Mehdi Hassan, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, Dropshite News, the lot of them are trying to get us killed. The reason for spreading relentless libels and hoaxes, framing Israel and anyone who is affiliated with it as evil, is to try to get us killed. I believe that they are actively incentivizing promoting, encouraging violence against Jews. There is no other way to explain the rabbit hole that Tucker Carlson has gone down. Candace Owens as well with, I mean, I can't even remember some of the craziest, what was it? Israel kills babies because they secretly worship Baal. I mean, the conspiracy theories become more and more and more insane. And the goal of the anti-Zionist libel of framing Israel as evil, white, settler, colonial, apartheid, genocidal baby killing is to legitimize violence against us. It is to drive a wedge between us and Western partners so that we'll be left alone to fight against the enemies who want to kill us, and is to actively promote violence against Jews around the world. You saw that with Candace Owens recently when she tweeted about the possibility that Tucker Carlson might be arrested. You know, she said, "We'll ride at dawn against the Epstein class," or something like that, which is a pretty clear threat against Jews. And I think we have to understand that's exactly what they're trying to do. This is not just being motivated by money, although you know, people like Piers Morgan have realized that platforming anti-Semites to spread conspiracy theories about Jews is a very effective business model. I think a lot of these people have a very dark hatred in their hearts, and they're actively trying to encourage violence.
EYLON, have you been surprised at the lack of sympathy for the Iranian people? I mean, we saw on the 8th and 9th of January, probably 41,000 people massacred, another 330,000 people injured, and yet there were no uprisings on campuses, there were no marches, the world didn't care. What is wrong that even just taking that as opposed to comparing it to what we saw, the protests in favor of the Palestinians, why don't people care?
I think you're making a basic mistake by looking at the protests chanting from the river to the sea and globalize the Intifada and saying, why don't they care about the Iranians? Because behind that question is saying, wait, the people who are protesting for the Palestinians really care about human rights and international law, just like they were saying. No, they didn't care about human rights and international law. It was an annihilationist movement that wants to destroy Israel and hates Jews, and they view the Iranian regime as being an ally in that. So no, I'm not surprised that they're not marching against the Iranian regime, because they're not human rights activists. They're violent third worldists who hate Israel, want to destroy it, and the Iranian regime is an ally in that fight. I think this is a mask-off moment, and we really need to emphasize that, how all the people who were chanting about, you know, human rights and international law are now basically cheering on Iran's ballistic missiles, eagerly tweeting the AI videos of Tel Aviv supposedly being destroyed with glee because they want it to be true. And when you point out to them that the Iranian regime is firing ballistic missiles with cluster munitions straight into residential neighborhoods, their reply, I had this just now on Twitter, is, well, what did you expect them to do? As if everything they've been preaching about international law has gone out of the window, and now suddenly firing ballistic missiles at civilians is fair game. So no, I'm not surprised, because I didn't see them as humanitarian activists, and they've done a very good job hijacking human rights organizations to frame themselves as human rights activists, but it's not what they are. And that's why you're seeing not much sympathy for the Iranian people against the regime, but also absolutely no sympathy for the Israeli people coming under incessant ballistic missile fire. And I say it's very revealing, because we know that sympathy is not a strategy. And so, you know, we've clocked that, we've remembered that, we know who didn't even shed crocodile tears for us, and who we're not even going to rely on for rhetorical support in future, and if we have to rely on ourselves.
EYLON, if you'll give us 3 more minutes, I know Michael has a question for you about South Africa. If we can squeeze that in, please.
I mean, I know you've got strong views on the South African government, and I thought it was a good platform for you to sort of give us your views. They've sort of been champions of the legal fight against Israel and big supporters of Iran in BRICS. I don't know if you had any views on South Africa's role in the conflict, both with Iran and the Palestinians.
I don't know to what extent South Africa has been involved directly in the conflict, but I think it's moved, as you said, the BRICS pretty firmly, not even the BRICS, it's moving closely into the Chinks bloc of China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, framing itself as an anti-Western actor. The decision to sponsor the shameful genocide suit at the ICJ against Israel, at the time I said it was acting as advocate for the devil. It acted to shield the Hamas regime from the consequences of the war it launched by throwing enough mud at Israel that it stuck, and souring its allies against it. So I think it's played an extremely detrimental role it's still running on fumes from the end of apartheid and the image of being, a human rights nation. But it's not. It's taken a very destructive turn that has placed it firmly within the Iranian orbit as an Iranian ally. And I would be interested to see, now that the Iranian regime is on the back foot, Venezuela having been knocked out as well, to what extent South Africa reconsiders its foreign policy stance and its alliance with Iran, given that you have the whole Middle East now forming a block, a balancing block against Iran and really wanting the fall of that regime.
No, thank you. I think you've got a lot of support here in South Africa, and as Howard said, the invitation to come and visit is always open. And we'd
Thank
really
you.
love to
We'll
see
speak
you in
offline.
person. Thank you.
So
Thank you very
Elon,
much.
we'll either see you next in South Africa, or we'll be dancing the horror on the streets of Tehran.
Absolutely, one of them. I think a free Tehran may be the safer choice sooner.
Inshallah.
As they say.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Elon,
Thank you.
thank you so
Thank
much for joining us this evening.
Bye-bye.
Which brings us to our next two illustrious panelists, and we're so grateful to have Gil Hoffman of Honest Reporting and Tal HAGIN, who I've been following for a long time on X, on Twitter, seeing him debunk so much of the misinformation that is being spewed out there. So how are we going to run the rest of the evening? Gil, you've got a presentation. We're going to, about 10 minutes, we're going to run through that. Tal, you've got a similar presentation. We're going to run through that. And then we're going to have a open conversation. And we want everyone watching to also understand this isn't just the four of us talking on the screen. This is about you as well. So if you're watching on Facebook or on Zoom or on YouTube, use the comment section, participate, ask questions, comments. We'll try and make sure that all of your comments and questions are brought through to some of the best experts in the world on the topic. So with that, Gil, shall we ask you to proceed maybe with your presentation? Are you able to share your screen?
Yes, I will share my screen, but before that, I just want to say thank you again to Howard and Michael for the wonderful introduction, and say that I actually was in South Africa only 4 months ago.
Really? What were you doing here?
I didn't tell any of you that I was coming because I took my children on holiday during Hanukkah, and we went to Game Park, Dino King Game Park, there in Gauteng, and we didn't do much in Johannesburg. We went to Kosher World, got some food, and brought it, to the safari. And then in Cape Town, we went to every tourist site there was in 3 days. We packed it in from morning till night, and we really, really enjoyed it. So I'm very happy to be speaking here to the people of South Africa, and I appreciate everything that you've been doing in fighting the fight for Israel on the media battlefield in a very, very challenging place. So I will be sharing my presentation as best as possible with my limited technological know-how over here, that I prepared to be ready, and I don't know, I'm gonna
We'll give you a minute or two.
have ready purposely here first. This ready, and now share screen.
Okay, don't forget to click the optimize for video sharing and sound if there's any sound.
Okay, so
You can see this
share
isn't our first
sound
rodeo.
and optimize. You got it.
Cool.
There we go.
There we go. So Honest Reporting has been around for 25 years, since there was this picture in the New York Times of a bloodied boy with this menacing looking soldier that they said was a Palestinian boy harmed by the soldier, when in fact it was this soldier is a Druze soldier that saved this Jewish boy's life. And that led to a group that people would share incorrect headlines about Israel in biased media and honestreporting.com. But in my 3.5 years there, we got 15 Hitler and Hamas praising journalists suspended, reassigned, or fired, including 3 from the New York Times, 3 from the Associated Press, and 3 from CNN. And in this war in particular, we were always challenging, questioning how did the journalists get there so early to take pictures like this of the soldiers being taken out of the Commander Omer Nutra's burning tank immediately that morning. We find that the people who take pictures like this were people like Hassan Asliach, who here he is being kissed by Yahya Sinwar. We've made a point of holding journalists accountable when they've gotten things wrong. I'm sharing this just because it's a 6-second video in our limited time here.
9 million Palestinians live in Gaza, one of the most densely populated areas on earth, now being pummeled by Israeli airstrikes.
Yes, he really said 9 million Palestinians live in Gaza. As we all know, they're off by only 7 million people on CNN. And that's dangerous when they get things wrong. No, Gaza is not one of the most densely populated areas on earth. And they've been reporting wrong the entire time. We saw how 10 days into the war, they already were accusing us falsely of bombing a hospital, killing exactly 500 people, knowing immediately that 350 of them were women and 350 of them were children. Hamas math is different than other math. And the people bought it around the world, and how much danger that causes. We've been trying to hold accountable the top journalists in the world. You'd
And
think
I think
that
for sure,
Christian Amanpour, at least on the day that the hostages, the last of them were released, would show a little empathy, but this is what she said.
been a terrible, terrible 2 years for them, because not only are they there, you know, they're probably being treated better than the average Gazan because they.
When she says that our hostages were chained and held underground and starved and forced to dig their own graves and sexually assaulted, were probably treated better than the average Gazan. This video, when someone sent it to us a second after she said it, we quickly made this clip to put it online, but before it was even online, I sent it to the foreign minister of Israel. And he responded within a minute with one word, the word kalba, bitch. And we made sure that she would apologize, even though she didn't want to. Further on the dangers. This picture was printed when immediately after in July, when Donald Trump said the war will be over within a week. And it would have been over within a week. But people started believing what they were seeing, that is if Israel's purposely trying to starve Gazan children, and Hamas tightened their negotiating position, and the war ended only 3 months after that. The people who were truly starving, who were the hostages in Gaza, they were the ones who ended up staying in Gaza for another 3 months because of the pictures like these falsely accusing Israel. And so why does this matter? We see the effect on public opinion around the world. The line that you see at the top is people above the age of 65 in America. They consistently have been supporting Israel. And it's been at 90% in the Harvard-Harris polls that have been asking, in the Israeli-Hamas conflict, do you support Israel more or Hamas more? Very stark contrast. Not Israel versus Palestinians, Israel versus Hamas. So right now, 72%, 28% saying Hamas. But among the young people, there have been times that they actually say they support Hamas more than Israel. If they knew what they're saying that they support going to dance festivals and murdering, raping, and kidnapping as many Jews as they can. I'd like to pray that they don't know what they're saying, but you see their number at the bottom is up and down, which shows that they're impressionable, which means that if we put out the right kind of videos every day about whatever people are going to be talking about, put out maps of the tunnels interactively underground, using AI where people are getting their news to question when they see pictures like this and find out where the pictures come from, which I know Tal is going to be talking about more. And training people in the best practices for fighting for Israel on social media and AI platforms, we can really make a big difference. we can affect those young people. Stopping to share screen for a minute to get more up to date with Iran, because that's where the focus is right now. I love the fact that Honest Reporting shared a couple of the videos that Tal has debunked in this war, because he's been doing wonderful work. But I want to get to Iran over here to an Instagram post. Let's see if I can go back and share screen again. Here we go. Here we go. Share. So, as EYLON mentioned, the claim that Tel Aviv was destroyed, and the claim that non-Jews, non-Israelis are barred from shelters, the claim that Israel struck Dubai and Cyprus and blamed Iran. These are the kinds of things that they're reporting incorrectly in the media nowadays. The Netanyahu being killed in an airstrike that resulted in him having to put out that ridiculous video of him going to a coffee shop, and of course the lies of Tucker Carlson. This is what we have been putting up with, and we've made a point of making sure people know what we're up against, disproving the viral hoaxes that people are for some reason believing images like these that are shared on the social media. And there's Tal over there. The lie about Israelis being scared and fleeing the country. Israel being battered and hiding it. Actually, we've been quite open with how the physical destruction that there's been to homes in this war, and also the social media influencers that have been putting out lies throughout this war, while the social media influencers in Iran who are telling the truth about how they want the regime gone, and they are in favor of what Israel is doing together with the United States. It's important that they be highlighted more. And so it's a challenge. It's not easy, but it has to be done, because success on the media battlefield is the key to success on the military battlefield. And if people continue to believe the lies, then the entire world will be more dangerous. But if people realize the truth, that Israel has saved the world from genocidal terrorists and Islamic fundamentalist nuclear weapon, then as soon as this war is done with the Iran defanged, we are going to face an economic boom in Israel like we've never had before. Anti-Semitism will go back down around the world. Terror will go down. And we'll have long-term security over here. And the Abraham Accords are going to expand. And so I truly believe that there are better days ahead. And that's in part because of people like you who are watching this or part of this webinar, who I know since October 7th have lost a lot of friends because you've been fighting that fight and keeping the international media and social media influencers at bay and proving where they're wrong. Thank you so much for everything you've done, and thank you in particular to Howard and Michael and everyone involved here. Thank you.
Thanks, Gil. We're going to come back. There's a lot we want to discuss about that presentation. It's so interesting that you focused on things like the New York Times, the BBC, CNN. I think there are a lot of questions that we all have about how credible those sources are, and whether there's a Trump factor involved at the moment in this war, where those who oppose Trump are automatically opposing the war, whether it's the right thing or not. And we're going to talk about that when we come back. But before we do that, Tal, your area of expertise is social media. You've been debunking some of the nonsense that we see coming across our ex-Twitter feeds, across Instagram, across Facebook. Take us through, and then we're going to have a more broad discussion. We just need to unmute you, please.
You guys can see the presentation, correct?
Yeah, we can.
Just
Correct.
Awesome, great. So I was thinking about what I was going to speak about with all of you today, and while many people have already discussed, EYLON and Gil have both discussed both Israeli advocacy and also Israel's perspective in this war, and also how Israel's being showcased, I wanted to focus on something a little bit different, which is about ensuring that you guys know how to safeguard yourselves online, about ensuring that you guys know how to fact check on your own. Now, while a proper comprehensive lecture isn't really possible right now, I want to go through one aspect of media literacy that I teach that I think can be very, very valuable to all of you. So first of all, a little bit about myself. Whoever was here earlier, you guys get to hear it again. My name is Tal HAGIN. I'm an information warfare analyst and media literacy lecturer. I work as a senior OSINT analyst for a business intelligence company known as Golden Owl, and I'm a senior lecturer for an Israeli watchdog group known as Fake Reporter. I'm independent in the way that I operate. Nobody tells me what to do. The stuff that I do online when it comes to fact checking verification is out of a passion and love for ensuring factual reporting. And I deal with a lot of different things every single day. And you guys are always welcome to reach out to me for verifications or help or collaborations. When we talk about conflict zones, at the end of the day, we aren't going to be in every conflict zone. Those of you who aren't in the state of Israel or aren't in Iran, it's very hard for you to know what's happening on the ground. And so you have to derive your understanding from victims or perpetrators and the content that they upload, satellite imagery that's online. And one issue that we run into is, you have all these different types of videos that are posted online. And what's the point of them? It's about accountability, awareness, political pressure, investigatory material. I see a horrific video of a young child who's been hurt. I want to be able to help that child. If I see that the country that I support is being destroyed, then I want to pressure my politicians to put more into the fight. But what do we do when a lot of the content that we see online is fake? All of the videos and photos that you're looking at, they're not real. They're all fake. And they've tricked millions of people. Millions of people have fallen for these things and have believed this content. And it's dangerous. And the reason that these things are so dangerous is because it sends investigators on false chases, as in, instead of me investing my time investigating, a story based on factual information, I'm being thrown a ton of fake information. It gives the ability for atrocity to deny, as in, when, for example, we're discussing the horrors of October 7th, for example, and somebody is still professing a eyewitness testimony that turned out to be false, then when that specific eyewitness testimony is debunked, then essentially it is used as a justification to go against the entire story, that everything is false because you lied about this specific story. And it also derails credibility. At the end of the day, for journalists and for our politicians and those who represent us, their word means a lot, and the trust that we have in them. And if they accidentally share this type of content, it makes people start to question, should I be putting my faith in them? So what do we do? So this is a method that I, specifically with AI verification, and it's called the visit method. And it's visualize the landscape of manipulated media, identify AI-specific indicators, source the original creator, and treat tools as signals, not proof. Now, we're not going to be going through all of this today. We're just going to go through visualize the landscape of manipulated media. Now, I very much believe in the concept of knowing your enemy. The only way to defeat your enemy is to know them. And when people are telling you to debunk the content that you see online, one of the first things that you need to know is what even exists online, what types of fake news there are. So we're just going to go through various different examples of the types of fake news you guys are going to encounter day to day when you're online. And you'd be amazed how much this can help you. First, we have trust-based. This user, for example, said that this is Tel Aviv Airport. People trust him. They think that he's a trusted source. In the video, it says that it's Denver Airport, and I also geolocated and confirmed. But the video says Denver Airport in it, but people trusted the caption. They trusted the user. And I see this happen way too much. There's also people who analyze. You have this analysis by this individual on the right who's talking about What is this green thing? What are they hitting Beirut with? Essentially trying to allude that the IDF was using some type of new weaponry. But if you didn't focus on his analysis and you just looked at the photo, you would have noticed that what you're seeing is just light coming from the minarets of a mosque. It's not any type of weaponry. Then you have repurposed imagery. The photo that you see is actually from a court case that happened, I think, in Georgia. Yeah. But they were claiming that this was full-blown panic that was happening in a bomb shelter. And so this happens quite often where they will take real imagery from different conflicts, from different situations, from different scenarios, and they will repurpose them with new material. You also have Photoshop. Photoshop is still used, even though we have AI today. For example, here, talking about the chief CNN of the international anchor, look how impartial she is with a book of Terrorism is a Myth. Then the original, it's from 2020, first of all, it's from 6 years ago, the photo, and it's a manipulated image with Photoshop. In the original, she's holding up a book of Barack Obama. Simple Photoshop still tricks people. Then you have deepfakes, where we're not really going to go through exactly, but deepfakes where they look quite realistic, these types of deepfakes, but the second you put them next to the original video, they start to look a little off. Then you also have CGI. CGI is still quite used. This was a video that people were trying to say was Israel being blown up. And it actually is a composite of this meteor strike with this video from a country in, I think, East Asia. So I forgot exactly where, nowhere near Israel. So it's a composite of a fake meteor strike with a country from across the globe, and they're saying it's Israel. Then you have reliance on LLMs, and this is something that is incredibly dangerous. When we simply rely on ChatGPT, on Grok, on Gemini, it's very, very dangerous. Now, I've written an entire piece about why LLMs are not good at fact checking. I would really recommend you guys read it. It's on Fathom, which is a journal by BICOM. It's, I think the name is Replacing Probability with Evidence, talking about why LLMs can't do fact checking. I really recommend you read the piece. And here, for example, you know how we had the image of the mass grave cemetery from Minav after the school was struck in Iran. So individuals took the photo and put it into the LLMs, and they asked, where is this photo from? And suddenly the AI started saying it's from Indonesia, it's from the Philippines, it's from 2021 during COVID. And no, it's a real image. I geolocated, I found exactly where it was taken. I found different images of it. And later on, we also got updated satellite imagery that proved that it was real. And so when we have this over-reliance on LLMs as if they know everything, it can be very dangerous. You have AI-generated images. The image of this destroyed street in Israel is completely false. It's not real. Then you have AI-enhanced imagery. So this is a little bit different. And this is also sometimes more dangerous because it's harder to detect. You see, the photo on the right is really a strike that happened in Iraq by Iran. The photo on the left, though, this like massive explosion, isn't real. It's an AI-enhanced image. Then you also have this one where they took an image from Google Maps of a base in Bahrain, and then they made this essentially AI-enhanced version of it being destroyed. Now, the last thing I want to show you guys is one of the most dangerous types of AI manipulated imagery. It's not this one, it's next. You have this, just AI-generated videos that sometimes look very, very realistic, and they fool a lot of people, and they're always trying to push different types of messages. And the last thing is the most dangerous, in my opinion. It's called AI splicing. That's the name that I gave it. It might also be the official name. I don't know. That's what I call it. This video was uploaded, as you can see, and it's showcasing allegedly a strike against Iranian forces in Iran by either America or Israel. It's not real. It's based off of this image. This is a real image that somebody took in Iran. And what they did is they AI spliced it by adding on an entire video where the camera is raised up. Another example of this is from June 2025. So this, what you see, is an AI spliced video. So this was allegedly Iranian officials fleeing the country, trying to get away. And so this is the video. The video is technically real. It's from 2023. But that second part of the video where all the cars are going on the tarmac, that's not real. That's fake. And the reason it's important to understand this is that I'll give you a simple example and then I'll finish up. Is that when I'm looking at an image and I'm thinking of AI. Now, when we think of what is AI, we think of the weird fingers, we think of like something that doesn't make sense, of gibberish in the background. We all kind of have an understanding of what AI is supposed to be, right? So then we see a video and there's no glitches. Everything looks perfect. Okay, so it must be a real video. Maybe it's an AI spliced video. Maybe it's Photoshop. Maybe it's CGI. As in, when you know the different types of way that you can manipulate imagery, you can manipulate reports and sources and content, it also makes it easier for you to detect it because then you know what to look for. If you see something that's very, very low quality, it might have been AI spliced because when you take a real video and put it through AI splicing, it removes the quality. And so this is kind of the method that I use in my day-to-day verification. And the reason I think it is so important for you guys is that while I am here to help, and my day-to-day job and the way that I operate is about being able to be there as essentially a tool for you guys to use. My contact information is here in the bottom right, contact at tallhagen.com, or you can just go to my website at tallhagen.com. But what's more important to me is that you guys do this on your own, because it's not only more empowering when you guys can do this on your own, it also allows for you guys to entrust in yourself and not be reliant on others. So thank you, and I hope that even though this was quite short, I hope that this gave you a little treat as to the type of media literacy that we're all capable of.
Thanks, Tal. That was enormously useful. But Mike, you want to kick off maybe by talking to Gil about some of the mainstream media and what he's finding there.
Yeah, sure. Gil, thank you for your presentation. You know, what seems to be quite weird in this war is that militarily, Israel and the US seem to be dominating. I mean, unbelievable military successes, taking out the Ayatollah, bombing so many targets, having free reign of the skies of Tehran. But yet the media narrative is that Israel and the US is losing. And there seems to be this really disconnect from the way that the war is taking place on the ground versus what we're seeing in the mainstream media. What's your view on that?
Well, as you can see in my latest column in the Jerusalem Post that I just posted in the chat over there, Israel was coming from behind, and that we automatically lose half of America and most of the world that either hates or at least deeply dislikes Donald Trump. And then we also lose the people who are harmed economically by the gas prices going up. Which is Iran's fault, but we get blamed for. So that all makes us be coming from behind when it comes to trying to persuade people and have them support us. But we are winning in this war. We in the first moments of it, killing the Ayatollah and 40 of the top people there in Iran, and since then, his Larjani, who basically was running Iran for the last few years, and more and more and more leaders of the Revolutionary Guard and the Basij. Those are undeniable successes to the point that the opposition in Israel is still very supportive of Netanyahu doing whatever he has to do to make sure that Iran will be long-term defeated and facilitate the regime change that has to come from the people. So yes, the media is completely, with their wishful thinking, trying to make it look like we're not succeeding, that we just replaced one Ayatollah Khamenei with another, and that leaving uranium in the ground. But our successes we can be very, very proud of.
And Gil, just, you know, dealing through honest reporting, do you think there's systematic bias within the sort of mainstream Western media? I mean, you see BBC, for example, it's more than just errors around Israel. They're reporting on Israel. Through your experience with honest reporting, I mean, you see these things repeat. You know, once maybe it's a mistake, twice it's incompetence. But when you see multiple times at these, systematic bias, would you agree? And where in the media do you see that coming from? Is it the left-wing media, the right-wing media? Where do we see this bias, and what generates it?
So first of all, the way we monitor the media has changed. It used to be that we'd have 4 staff members try to follow 100 media outlets from around the world. And from October 7th onward, that was impossible. So Honest Reporting is now training an AI tool. The 8 categories of media bias, which I encourage someone to put into the chat. Google Honest Reporting 8 categories of media bias. And right now are being monitored by an AI that we've been optimizing. And that flags the articles that are getting things wrong, that violate one of those 8. And it is happening absolutely across the board. Now, it used to be that people would see something, they'd write a letter to the editor, but now that we get the information within seconds, we can get things changed behind the scenes, corrections quietly before anybody got a chance to see it, moments after it went online. We can shame the reporters on social media. Nobody wants to be shamed. They want to be seen as getting things right. But as you point out, Michael, sometimes there are patterns, and that requires longer kind of articles to educate people around the world. We know we're not going to change biased reporters, but we can at least educate the news consumers to realize that they need to be more skeptical. And I think that's been successful in this war, that
And the
people
senior
are taking
executives
that.
at these kind of the senior executives at these kind of newspapers and media outlets, when you point out the systematic bias, are they open to that and trying to address it, or do they just ignore your sort of reports?
No, the people who we pointed out supported Hitler on social media, the New York Times, CNN fired them immediately. Some people, they want to get the news right. But to answer the end of your question there from before, where people can trust, I don't recommend any international media outlet for news about Israel. If you want to get news about Israel you can trust, then get them from Israeli media. If you know Hebrew, great, and if not, the Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel, and I-24. I'm a big Chicago sports fan, and I don't get my news about Chicago sports teams from Yediot Achronot living in Israel. So why would anyone in South Africa get their news as Israel fans about Israel from a South African media outlet or an American or British one for that matter?
And then I had a question on Al Jazeera. I think over the last few years, what we've seen is the rise of these ideological news stations, Al Jazeera being one that's really been promoted and to promote a lot of anti-Israel bias, particularly since October 7th. And RTV was shut down in the West after the war, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. How come Al Jazeera has been allowed to carry on spewing hate, and there hasn't really been a systematic campaign to try and stop Al Jazeera? I don't know if you have any views on them and particularly their reporting.
People don't realize that it's propaganda of the government of Qatar, the way they do with RT being Putin's channel. I was interviewed on RT immediately after Netanyahu won an election, and the other analyst, I love being here with Tal, my analyst, the other analyst they put me with last time was Noam Chomsky. And he said that the reason why Israelis voted for Netanyahu was because they are racist, and Netanyahu challenged Barack Obama. So that's RT. But Al Jazeera is very dangerous because people don't realize what it is. And they're getting their dose of Qatari propaganda day in and day out. And during this war, they were very much part of both the military and media battlefields against Israel. Active terrorists within Hamas who were doing their moonlighting with Al Jazeera and vice versa. And that's why it made sense that Israel did what it did in kicking them out, the way many other countries in the world have. And we need to keep on exposing who they are.
Tal, can I ask you about the way that the media has changed? I don't know if you have a view on that, but even myself, I hardly hardly ever watch mainstream media or read mainstream news anymore. We get our news from social media, and social media influences, people like yourself, open source intelligence analysts. And maybe, do you have a view on does the mainstream media even matter anymore? Should we just be focusing our attention on social media?
I think the real issue that comes about, I see this kind of like rephrasing the question, is regarding, like, what about their agendas and the agendas they have, or like, how do I find out the truth and what's going on? Is that every media organization, every individual you speak to has an agenda. Every person has a bias. There's no one who doesn't. The problem is that the whole point of media, the way it used to work at least 30, 40, 50 years ago, is that you had 4 or 5 stations that existed. That's all you could watch. That's all you would know. The only way that you would know about anything that's happening in the world is from these few stations. These stations did have different types, and they still do today. At the end of the day, mainstream news has a far more expansive editorial framework. EYLON said it earlier, it's very much true, even if there are specific cases, and Gil talked about it a little bit, where there's issues. But in general, they have experts on the team. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been in a newsroom of like BBC or CNN. They're massive. They have expert panels. They have different areas. They have tons of different individuals that they reach out to. My point there is that there's a massive filter from what's happening, for example, on the battlefield until it gets to you. You'll see 2 people shoot each other. There's analysts that look at that and tell you, okay, who's who? Then they look at individuals who they're journalists about what's the context. Then they go to their investigatory team to figure out what actually happened. And then there's a narrative, for example, of how they perceive the story. And that's what you see on your TV screen. Today, when you open up social media, you get to see a soldier being shot. That's what you get. You don't get the filtered version up to your TV screen. And the problem with that is that you're still in the mindsets of you have to trust somebody, because we don't have the time to check every analyst and figure out who's telling the truth and who's telling a lie. We just find a social media influencer or news channel that we like because they say things that we like. They say the right words. And then we have to blindly trust them, which makes sense because we don't have time to investigate everything. But the issue there now is that the information that we're being given is so much more fragmented than it was. Back then, I would say, and with mainstream media, it's been very much very processed information. And the information that you're receiving from social media is incredibly fragmented, raw information. And that's the danger also when it comes to information.
But it's also more real, so you get addicted.
And then what is real? You don't really know what you're looking at. I can't tell you how many times, for example, I've seen, there was a video a few days ago of someone saying, look at this, I think it was like F-16 over over Tehran in Iran. It was like filming up towards the sky, and everyone was like cheering it on. And how do you know what it is? You can't see the jet. You just see something in the distance. You can't tell that it's Tehran. All you see is the sky. What are you talking about? But that's the thing but people trusted whoever posted it. And therefore, they instinctively, we have this weird thing where we think that people, not that just that they don't lie, but that they don't make mistakes when they're posting these things. Or they think they know what they're seeing. So when I see the video, I'm saying, okay, I don't see anything. All I see is a thing in the sky and it's moving across. It could be from anywhere in the world. But because of our innate trust with individuals, if we trust in the source, then we just, okay, fine, that's true.
So, Tal, I have a bunch of questions for you around social media, but before we do, we want to take this opportunity with the thousands of people watching us across the various platforms. We want to take this opportunity for those people who would like to contribute some money towards the JNF's project for firefighting equipment in Israel. So as we know, when cluster munitions hit, when ballistic missiles hit, there's generally fire, there's damage, and people, rather than run away, they're groups of people that run towards, to put out the fires, to look for the injured people, to get the ambulances in there. And there are many people who would like, just before Pesach, to make a contribution, to be able to actually show some solidarity with the victims in Israel of what's been happening. So we just want to take a minute or two to say, Michael, you on behalf of the JNF, you've been collecting money for the firefighters in Israel. What are you going to show us? So you're going to show us a very short video and then put a QR code on the screen. And if anyone would like to make a donation in order to support the JNF project, we're very happy to use this opportunity to raise some money and do some good in Israel as well.
Thanks, Howard. I'll start with the video. There we go.
Whoa!
So, Mike, if people would like to make a donation, how can they in fact do that?
I'm about to share a QR code with everyone and just say thank you really to the South African Jewish community.
But it's not just the South African Jewish community. We're broadcasting around the world. As you know, 30-40% of the people who watch us are in places like Canada and the United States and the UK and Australia. We've got viewers in places like Nigeria and the Philippines and Panama. So it's to everyone who's watching us. And it's certainly not just the Jewish community. We have at least 30% of our viewers not being members of the Jewish community, but very interested in the sort of topics that we cover.
So a big thank you. We've already raised enough for 15 firefighting kits. We're raising money for protective gear for the first responders who, run to the fires, not away. And it's been 4 weeks under fire. I don't think, they were expecting the war to last so long, and the cluster bombs have really created quite a lot of chaos. And they've asked for protective kits, helmets, gloves, masks, suits, we're very grateful that we've already been able to give 15 kits so far, and we're hoping to do another 15 kits by the time Pesach comes. So please, we ask everybody as your Pesach donation, if you think about the firefighters in Israel, they're on the front lines of this war, and they really do need our support and protection to keep them safe. So protect the protectors.
So if you've got a cell phone, open the camera, point it at that little square weird thing on the screen that is called a QR code, and it should open up a link to pay, or alternatively there's a wallet doc link, which Michael, you will post on YouTube, Zoom and Facebook, so people can just click on the link and make a donation for this. And thank you to the JNF and for everything that you do in making sure that the firefighters are safe. May remind people that we did a similar appeal when Russia invaded Ukraine, and we sent a significant amount of firefighting equipment through to Ukraine as the initial missiles actually hit Kiev as well. So Michael, thank you very much. Please post the link in the comment section.
Oh, thanks, Howard.
So Tal, who is behind all of the social media? Is it individuals who just feel sympathy? Are there governments involved, NGOs involved? If you were to analyze a lot of these fake videos and the fake news, what do you see behind it? Scratch a little deeper for us.
So I think the answer that people want me to say is that there's some specific nefarious group that's responsible for it all, because that makes things easier. But it's really just people being people. And what I mean by that is that there are, of course, nefarious groups, those who are pushing disinformation, specifically which groups and how they operate. That's beyond my current scope of expertise, because that requires a lot of research and time and effort, which I currently don't have to do. But there are other fantastic organizations that are putting together different types of work. One of the organizations I work with, Golden Owl, did a report showcasing a massive Iranian influence campaign on Twitter. And so there are different types of influence campaigns. A lot of it is also to promote themselves. I would call it warmongering, essentially, where war profiteers, where essentially they realized that because this war, everyone is focusing on it, this is where they can make their money. And I can actually show evidence for this theory is that I've seen multiple times that there are different channels that they make AI videos that has to do with the current crisis. So when the protests started in Iran, even before that, I remember there was a specific channel that I followed where suddenly I saw all over TikTok and Twitter all these AI videos from the massacres going on in Sudan. So there's suddenly so many AI videos being pumped out. And then as soon as the protests started to happen in Iran, they all switched. And suddenly all their posts were AI videos of protests in Iran. And then as soon as America started conversing and talking actually about fighting against Iran, suddenly it all switched to showcasing either Iran's military strength or the Americans' military strength in AI. And now it's switched to showcasing destruction and mayhem in AI. And the point there is that a lot of what these accounts are doing is because EYLON actually said it earlier, is that they make money off of this. You can make a lot of money by posting this type of content online because the way in which people are paid is through engagement, through views. And when it comes to the social media companies, they don't care because what matters to them at the end of the day is making money. And what am I supposed to say to Elon Musk or to Mark Zuckerberg or to the head of Apple and all these other companies? Sorry, you guys should make less money to make for the betterment of humankind. No, at the end of the day, they want to make money. And from a business standpoint, it makes complete sense. And so what really needs to happen is we as the people, as a collective, need to be more vocal about the fact that this is an issue that plagues our social media platforms. As you guys said, a lot of the information that we have access to, that we learn about the world, is through online social media. And so what we really need to be doing is promoting, advocating for different types of regulations and policies that are forced upon these social media companies by our governments. Because it's not about restricting what people can say, but it's about ensuring culpability. It's ensuring that there is checks and balances, that when individuals are posting disinformation, good, you want to post disinformation, I know your full name and I know who you are. We can put a defamation case against you. You want to post the stupid things, great, we know who you are. It's not about you not being allowed to say what you want, but it's about ensuring that there's accountability for what we do online. And so a lot of the reason that we see so much false information online is because of this lack of regulation. And another issue, and just the last point, is because we want information. What we want is to know everything right now. Oh, there was an explosion that happened at the school in Iran. I need to know everything. I need to know who's the culprit. I need to know who the victims are. I need to know exactly where it happened now. That's not how the world works. It takes time to get all the information out. And investigators, people who are far more professional in their fields, they take the time to look through the evidence, to look through the claims. Think about a police reporter. Do they immediately after there's a murder start telling the public everything? No, they take time. If they have a suspect, they don't blast their name on social media saying this person's a suspect. They quietly bring them sometimes into the station if they can, and then they question them. And only if they're a proper suspect, then they make it public. But because of this information bubble that we have where we think that we should have access to everything, that becomes the moment when the grifters, when the disinformation agents, that's when they come out to play. Because you want the information now. You don't want to wait 3, 4, 5 days. You want to know what happened now. You want to know who to be upset with now. And that's where they come in and harm you. Because they know that you want information and they fill the void with disinformation.
So Tal, is it because ultimately in all of this, people are just looking for clicks? The more clicks you get, the more money you make. And for example, a YouTube video, 1 million views, about $5,000. I don't know what the payout rate. I don't think Instagram pays, but Facebook pays, and TikTok certainly pays. So the more outrage you can create, the more, in fact, you can inflame people. The more they comment, the more people see it, the more people share it, the more views you have. That's how the business of fake media works. Yeah. Do we do it as well? Is everyone doing it? I mean, we know, for example, in the first Donald Trump campaign, when people spoke about Russian interference, it wasn't that they were supporting Trump. They supported Trump and opposed Trump. They supported Black Lives Matter and opposed Black Lives Matter. They supported gun control and they supported the NRA. They wanted to create as much friction in the environment as possible, because chaos sometimes feeds your ends. Is that the sort of thing that we're seeing here as well?
What we're seeing here is twofold. On one hand, you have the disinformation, the chaos agents, and you have individuals who are trying to grift and trying to essentially make people mad. But who are the people getting mad? Who are the people clicking? That's you. That's me. That's all of us in this call. We are the people who are clicking. We're the people who are sharing this content. And so it's very much a joint effort that when these different disinformation campaigns are being waged against the United States or Israel or the UK or South Africa, they don't make up the reasons for the public to get mad at. They find what the public is already mad about. For example, when we talk about the state of Israel, what are the Iranian, for example, influence campaigns against the state of Israel focused on? They're focused on the elections. They're focused on the ultra-Orthodox population against the secular population. These are real issues that are being discussed in Israel. They're not made up, but they exacerbate them. They make them even more extreme than they need to be. And when somebody, for example, sometimes allows for that extremity, for example, if I now say, if I push into the conversation, I think it's okay to kill this person, like I as a disinformation agent, once that's in the field, then other people who are real, they're like, you know what, if he said it, I can say that too. And so essentially what it says, it's a domino effect. But the dominoes that are beyond the initial one that pushes them down still exist out there, and that's you and me. And my point there is that we need to ensure that we're not putting the blame, or that we're not only blaming those who are putting out the content. They need to be handled. We also need to protect ourselves, which is exactly what I was showcasing with the media literacy thing earlier. We need to be able to protect ourselves.
So Gil, let us say I see a piece of content in my local newspaper or on television or on social media. What's my responsibility if I find it offensive, if it's fake? What should I actually do? Should I write to the editor? Should I comment on it? Should I report it to Facebook? Walk us through what we should be actually doing. Do I go and report the post?
Well, Howard, do you have 100,000 followers on any social media platform?
Some of my videos get a few 100,000 each.
Okay, all right. But so I'd like to think that most of the people here don't. So in that case, I recommend that you help out Honest Reporting, where we do have 100,000 followers on 3 different platforms and can be more effective that way. Send to action@honestreporting.com. I'll put it in the chat over here, where we can do the work for you if you aren't big on social media yourself. But I want to take you through what you can do each individually. First of all, when you share pro-Israel social media content, then it gets seen by more people. When you engage with it, when you comment underneath. If it's something on Facebook or on Instagram, share it on WhatsApp, because that's owned by the same people and they appreciate that. If you see something that is anti-Israel, don't share it on WhatsApp. You can take a screenshot and share the screenshot instead, and that way you're not affecting the algorithm. If there's a video that you like that's pro-Israel, play it until the end. And that will really shock the algorithm, because no one plays videos until the end. And you don't have to actually watch it until the end. You can go make coffee or whatever, but let it play out until the end.
So Gil, I just want to interject there, because there are a few things you can do with a video on social media or any post. You can like it, you can comment on it, and you can share it. In terms of the algorithm, if you share it, you press that little arrow button, that almost immediately upranks it 25 times more than just liking the video. But people tend to see things and they don't do anything with them. They don't like, they don't comment, they don't share. What you're suggesting is share, like the stuff that you like. Let the creators who are producing the sort of content that you like, let them know that you actually like it, because it makes a big difference to the reach that they receive.
Absolutely.
And
you can make an impact on what other people see.
And the things we don't like, don't comment and have a fight. report it through to Facebook or X, complain about it.
They have guidelines. Each and every social media platform has different kinds of guidelines that are very easy to find on the websites. And if you can get things taken off, and if you don't, then send it to us and we will. You can get actual influencers taken off. Jackson Hinkle, we got taken off Instagram twice. You can make an impact that way. I want to also answer your question, Howard, though, about AI platforms, because we've talked about making money here. AI platforms don't make money yet. And because of that, you can have more of an influence there. Unlike social media, where they're making money, they have an interest in keeping you inside your own comfort zone. When it comes to AI, you can argue with your various AI platforms and ask, what are your sources of information on that? You ask for a more well-rounded source of information. Say the United Nations, Haaretz, and the New York Times are not proper sources of news about Israel. Check the Jerusalem Post, check HonestReporting.com, and check what the Jewish National Fund is putting out in South Africa. And we shouldn't be afraid to argue with our AI platforms. Jews are argumentative people. Abraham and Moses argued with God. We can argue with Grok.
Tell us how you find people that you actually trust. Who do you follow? Who is a good source of information for you?
You ask me or to give?
Yeah, please tell. Yeah.
When it comes, so I never name specific names, and it's for a number of different reasons. But when it comes to trusting sources, first of all, it's looking at their credentials, for example, who they are, what their background is. If they're a professor of economics, then look a little bit about their background in economics and what they talk about. I think the main thing that I would actually say is look what happened. Do they talk about everything? I think that's like a great way to put it. No one knows everything. And so the second I see any commentators suddenly talking about every conflict on the planet, everything that's going on, like suddenly COVID's in the news, suddenly they're an expert on COVID. There's now a geopolitical crisis going on in Venezuela, suddenly they're talking about foreign policy going on in Venezuela. As in, an individual who suddenly is an expert on everything is not an expert in anything. As in, people need to stay within their lanes of expertise because there's so much they don't know. Even though I might be an expert in verifying online media, when it comes to actually verifying a missile or verifying a soldier in like their uniform, I reach out to people who are experts in those fields to help me with that analysis. And so when we're looking at different individuals, that's the first thing, as in be aware if they suddenly are talking about everything. That's usually a very, very bad sign. Secondly,
can I give an example just before you come onto that? In South Africa, there's an African lady who's a big fashion influencer. She has never spoken about politics at all in her life, and suddenly she starts posting about Gaza. Every single day she posts about Gaza for 5 days. She's never done anything political related before, and on the 5th day after the final post, she goes and deletes everything. A clear sign that she has been bought and paid for, that every single post she did was a paid post, and as soon as the money stopped, she went and deleted everything. Find credible people in their area of expertise. The fashionistas are not going to help you with politics. Sorry, I interrupted there. You had
no, it's fine. I at the end of the day, when it comes to individuals, I want to get back on that point because I want to make one little citation there that's important. The second is look at what they write. For example, when they're writing about the topic, are they providing sourcing for what they're saying? Are they answering people's criticisms? And not people that are just yelling at them, but people who are actually pushing back on their claims. Are they just using ad hominems and yelling at them and saying that they're stupid if they don't agree with what they have to say? And see if that they're respectful in the way that they conduct themselves properly. If they make mistakes, for example, do they delete it and they say nothing? Do they block the people who corrected them? Or do they make a public apology and saying, I'm sorry that I got this wrong? It's also about the discourse and the way in which they handle themselves. Now, I don't think that just because you're not an expert in a topic, it doesn't mean you shouldn't talk about it. I don't think that just because you're a fashionista or just because you're a doctor or just because you're a media verification expert like myself, doesn't mean I can't talk about anything in the world, that it is illegal and that I'm an idiot. The point is that the second you start talking about any topic that isn't your field of expertise, when I mean expertise, I mean something that you literally focus your entire life on, the chances of you making mistakes and misunderstandings goes really, really high. And I also see this with myself, that there are, one of the reasons that I try to be, for example, when there was a lot of different claims about the elections in the United States during the previous elections, I didn't talk about it at all. Why? I'm a verification expert. I do fact checking. Why didn't I discuss it? Because I don't understand the American political system that deeply. I don't understand how the elections work on a more foundational level. And so the chances of me making a mistake when I'm doing verification work there is much higher. It doesn't mean I will make a mistake, but I'm aware of the fact that because I'm not an expert in this field, the chances of me making a mistake are much higher. And so what I did instead is I said, be wary of 1, 2, and 3. Make sure you check your sources. Very more generic things to help people manage the fiasco that was going on. And so to kind of like summarize, first, be wary of people that suddenly are an expert on everything, that suddenly are talking about everything under the sun. Those people, I would never trust them personally. Second, their discourse, the way in which they conduct themselves. Are they respectful? Do they retract false statements? Do they very much lay out their reasoning for why they believe in 1, 2, and 3 and how they came to that conclusion? Are they willing to change their opinion when they're confronted with evidence that very clearly disconnects them? At the end of the day, we do have to trust people. We have to trust those who are around us, but make sure that your trust is educated. Or are you trusting this individual because they said what you like? Or are they trusting this individual because, oh, they said this opinion and they backed it up with 1, 2, 3, and 4? And I see that it's very well educated in 1, 2, and 3. But that's the overall way in which I conduct myself.
So in the last few minutes that we have, before we come back and ask our last few questions to the panelists, I want to remind you, if you are watching us, number one, if you're on YouTube, please click that like and subscribe button so we can communicate with you better. And the second thing is, if you have any questions or comments, this is your opportunity to please post on Facebook or on Zoom or on where else are we on YouTube as well, and we'll bring all of those questions that are relevant. I see a lot of people are trying to make political points that's irrelevant to our discussion. We're trying to discuss fake media and misinformation. So if you have any questions, this is an absolute opportunity to ask one of those questions. Lauren asks us, how do we get Candace, Nick, and Tucker discredited? She says, impossible, ? Gil, is it possible or not possible?
It's harder than regular media because they're not beholden to a boss, who needs to keep the integrity of a media outlet. The way that Christiane Amanpour is and the writers of the top newspapers in the world are. Who we're going to complain to, the Emir of Qatar. So, but if we keep on highlighting when they get things factually incorrect, when they keep on highlighting their obsession with the Jewish people, then people take them less seriously. And we've already, I think, hurt them tremendously with Donald Trump. He felt compelled to come out against them, which is important. He realized that they're hurting the Republican Party ahead of the midterm elections in the United States. He goes on this, gives the State of the Union address for an hour and a half about how great everything is, and then Tucker says the opposite the following day. So that takes away his White House access that he had before, and that then gradually lower their credibility over time.
So, Tal, we have a question about Indonesian bot farms. Tell us what a bot farm is, and do they really exist? And is that the way people are actually, is it AI or is it actually individuals? How does a bot farm work, and who's behind them? And are they targeting X? Where are they targeting?
So I can't really go specifically into the actual details of how the farm is created, but how they're tracked is different. It's looking at different patterns. It's essentially, bot farms are essentially, think of it like there's one specific computer, and they can essentially mobilize tons of thousands of different profiles. And each of these profiles have their own identities, their own networks. They have automated responses to individuals. It used to be all manual. Now, because of AI, they can generate a lot of the stuff on their own. And they essentially just comment on people's posts. So they will be sent any post that involves Donald Trump. So if it's either a bot network that is trying to show negative connotations of Donald Trump are positive, then they will post different types of replies that are in those connotations. It's usually quite easy to spot them. If you look at the profile, you'll see they'll have like almost no followers, no connections. All their responses are sometimes very, very fast. You'll see that they're responding to people almost seconds after one another, which isn't really normal. And the way and how effective they are, there's a huge debate over that as to how effective they actually are. I think that the one way that I say that they could be a little bit more effective is less their opinions and more about amplifying different voices. So, if sometimes I think that we have this is not based on any type of factual information. This is just based on my personal opinion, but it appears that a lot of the times we believe that if somebody has a lot of a following or a lot of likes on a post, then that means it's more factual, that's more truthful because a lot of people are agreeing with it. So if you see a post that sounds quite radical in nature, that looks like a very extreme opinion, but it has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of likes and views, then you're like, this is more of a mainstream view. It's not some weirdo with 20 likes who nobody cares about. This is a mainstream person. And so that's one way that bot farms can be operated, where they essentially provide legitimacy to extremist beliefs. They can sometimes push different narratives above the rest. And so they can be effective in that regard. How effective they are at changing people's opinions in terms of the commentary that they release, that's beyond my scope at the moment.
Gil, can I ask you, I commented on something that Maria Norful said the other day, and I got attacked by a slew of vicious anti-Semitism. Holocaust imagery of hook-nosed Jews. What is this name, Sackstein? Are you a Jew? Is this a Zionist? Hitler didn't do enough to finish you people. I mean, it wasn't even a Jewish related topic. It just happened it was about whether the ADL was monitoring people, but I didn't comment. I commented on privacy. But there was the slew of vicious anti-Semitism. Is something like that individuals, crazed individuals? I mean, I personally just ignore it. I think if someone threatens you in public, they're just a paper tiger. The people who want to do you harm never threaten you. They just go ahead and do it. But are we seeing that people willing to stand up just have to have thick skins and bear it? Or how do you deal with that kind of level of antagonism where people just try to shut you down and intimidate you?
You're a hero, Howard. I mean, thank you for fighting the fight when you knew that that was going to happen, and of course it did. And there are plenty more people who hate Jews out there in the world than there are Jews. Those are simple numbers, but Jews aren't afraid to be an underdog, to be David fighting an army of Goliaths. Now, the worst of them, please send to Facebook. You can get them removed. They have guidelines against hate speech. You can't go on a social media platform and write, I'm going to go to the outside the largest synagogue in Johannesburg and open fire at this hour. It's not okay. So you can, if Facebook doesn't make an impact by your writing them, then send them to us. Send them to action@honestreporting.com, and we'll complain to Meta and maybe make an impact that way. We have the connections with them, because we can't let them win. We can have incremental success every day. We could look at this as a big mountain that's just too overwhelming to even bother fighting. That's not the way I think. I think that every day we can have success and make things better, and make progress.
Gil, you say you're a hero, but there's no heroism in it, because we as the Jewish people, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And we're the people who certainly stand for something. I have two questions for you. The first one is, what should we be doing better?
The simplest thing is to just question what you're looking at. When you are looking at a report, a photo, or a video, ask the simple question, am I seeing what they're telling me I'm seeing? So if you're seeing a report, for example, that Israel is about to invade Iran, according to a US official, then all you're seeing is somebody claiming that there's an anonymous source that said that Israel is going to invade. So you can just ignore that. Doesn't mean anything, because there's no consequences behind that source, because they're anonymous. If you see a photo or a video that's claiming something, ask yourself, is the photo and video showing what they're claiming? We talked earlier about the example of seeing that plane in the air and the individual saying that it's a Israeli fighter jet over Iran. And I ask you, is that actually what you see in the video? Or you just see a weird dot in the sky, you have no idea where that dot in the sky is, so you don't know what you're seeing, and you shouldn't share it. And the second part about this is understand that the internet is not some weird virtual reality. It is very much a part of the real world. What you post, what you share, what you do online affects people in their life. A great example I can give from Bondi, from the stabbing that occurred at the mall with Benjamin Cohen, who was falsely accused of being the murderer. And how did that happen? Because someone randomly said the individual's name was Benjamin Cohen online. That gained traction by people sharing it, being shared online. And eventually it made its way to a random individual named Benjamin Cohen, who also happened to live in Bondi. And he was harassed and abused. Or what happened in Portland, where a young individual stabbed 3 children, and people randomly put a name of a Muslim person online, and everyone started, and what happened is they went and tried to burn down the local mosque. As an understand that what we do online, what we share, that we don't validate, will have real world consequences. And so when you see a post and when you're sharing it, think to yourself, do I want to be responsible for someone in real life being harmed for this post? And understand, I know that might sound pretty extreme, that just liking a Facebook post can do that? Yes, because every like that you give, every reply that you give, every time you share that post, you're boosting it in the algorithm. You're letting more people see it. And all it takes is one crazy person to see that post for very bad things to happen in real life. And so be aware of that.
So finally, as we ask our last questions, and Mike, I don't know if you have one yourself, but I want to take the opportunity to say to people, if they'd like to thank our guests who've given up their evening in order to participate in this, especially when they should be searching for chametz around their homes and wandering around with feathers and candles and things like that. Gil, I'm sure you've done that already in your home, and I'm sure you've sold your chametz already. But instead of doing that, you guys have spent this evening with us, and really, if you'd like to give a thanks through to our panelists, we'd really, really appreciate that. But to both Gil and to Tal, are there some platforms worse than others? We've heard, for example, the TikTok algorithm may deliberately, in fact, skew things in an anti-Western and anti-Israel fashion. Is that correct? I turn on Threads, and maybe it's because I'm just not on Threads enough and it doesn't know me well enough, but Threads just seems to be one long feed of fake information, just, picture after video after comment of just complete and utter nonsense. Dead Netanyahu's, Tel Aviv's in complete destruction, bombings taking place. Are some platforms better than others? And Tal, let's start with you.
So funny enough, while X is one of the main contributors to a lot of the false information we see online, it also is one of the only platforms that make it easy for me to debunk. So for example, if I want to debunk posts on TikTok, I have to make videos. I have to make videos in order to respond to an individual that said something false, which I don't do, and most people aren't going to do that. It's also a lot more time. On Instagram, all you can do is write in the comments. And so or Threads, no one's going to see that. And it's not really going to mean much. You're not going to have a meaningful conversation. And so that's one thing I like about Twitter, that there's the ability to do a quote tweet where I actually showcase their post, and I'm explaining why it's fake. And also, while community notes aren't that great and they don't always work, it is also another layer that can be helpful. And so actually I find that there are more tools on Twitter, on X, for me to use to be able to debunk individuals, but no platform is perfect.
All I'll add is that the community notes function of Twitter, and the way it was more or less adopted by Facebook after Donald Trump won the election and they had to cop out of him, was something that ensures that minority voices get heard. Like there could be 100 different people saying something against Israel and 2 saying something in favor of Israel, when they have to put the 2. And us as a minority, that empowers the minority. And without getting to Passover yet, you just had Purim, and the message there is you never know when you're going to be the one who saves the Jewish people. You never know when you're going to have this Esther moment where your post influences someone who will be president of the United States or a minister in South Africa one day. So please do it. Please put those talkbacks. You're not doing nothing. You're accomplishing something. The midvar sheker tirchak is an active mitzvah. You have to. It's not just something you guard yourself from the chametz. That's just you. But when it comes to lies, you have to actually push them away. And so each and every one of you can do that mitzvah. Every moment you're on social media fighting for Israel, you're not wasting your time scrolling. You're doing a mitzvah. It's just as important as not eating bread or pork on Passover.
So just before I hand over to Michael to close and to thank everyone this evening, I want to say, and just echoing something, Gil, that you just mentioned, I speak quite often at the Jewish day schools, and the teachers would educate the kids to not engage on social media. And that seemed to be the most ridiculous thing in the world. In a world where everyone wants to be an influencer, where every person can have a voice, your voice is the most important weapon that you have. There's some people out there with rifles and guns. There's some of us with computers and cell phones. Go and fight your battle. Michael.
Amazing. Thank you again to everybody for joining us tonight. It was really a fascinating webinar. And it's in a post-truth world that it's very hard, but we've got to continue to fight for the truth and for what's fact. And thank you, for what you guys do, both of you, in that fight on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people.
Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you after Pesach. We hope that you have a Chag Pesach kasher v'sameach. Just go enjoy. For those of you who can't leave Israel because your flight's not going, like my family, I hope you weren't planning on having your seders somewhere else in the world. But make sure you please stay safe. And to everyone out there, just go. Let's talk about freedom over the next week, and let's talk about our own emancipation. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
Shaky over there, doesn't it?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much for having me.